Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. On behalf of Nadpurgas USA and Mata Tripta Gurukar, I welcome you all to the event today. The event today is a seminar whose title is Looking Forward, Future Opportunities and Challenges for the Sikh Society. The act of consciously seeking scholarship that enables us to perceive the influence and impact of practices and outlooks behind the formation of civilization domains such as technology, social justice, law enforcement, supply chain, education, etc., enables us to do core things. First, the act of seeking this scholarship makes us postulate and perceive implications which such practices may bear in the times to come on such civilization domains. Secondly, the act of consciously seeking that scholarship, it may make us hypothesize what may have been the reasons for why our current civilization domains are at the stature that they are, and consciously work towards addressing any challenges that those domains present. Communities that do not actively engage in staying abreast of the macro evolutions that transpire in their times, and in consciously using this awareness to determine how they will construct a living response to these evolutions, will find that their cultural systems, their traditional systems, their spiritual systems are being impacted in ways that they may not have proactively signed up for or would have imagined will transpire. The event today, Looking Forward, Future Opportunities and Challenges in Sikh Society, it attempts to shed light on some modern day practices and outlooks or evolutions which are happening around us, and consciously or subconsciously they are impacting the lives of our society. This event is going to probe us, it's going to nudge us to determine or wonder about what might be some of the possible opportunities that we may be able to explore or may be curious about exploring to address the challenges that are being introduced by these macro evolutionary changes around us that are hitting us today. Amandeep Singh, Director, Nadpurgas USA, and academic researcher by interest and management professional by profession, has prepared a talk on this topic and will be delivering this talk during the first session of today's meeting. Jaspreet Singh, Vice President, Supply Chain Management at DTE. He will be our second speaker for today. It is one of his deep passions to build awareness about career opportunities and pathways that exist for our youth and share that with the community. He will be our second speaker for the session and will speak in the second session. We will have a tea break at around 11:45 or 11:50. We're running late, so we had to adjust. And then we will reconvene a little after noon. In the first part of session 3, we will have Satpal Goelji narrate a couple of his creative works. And in the second part of session 3, we'll have a brief presentation on the one-year journey of Nadpurgas USA, the various programs that were conducted in that first year, and the contributions of such programs. At the end, we will have Penji Ramankaur convey her word of thanks, followed by pizza langar for the attendees and the Sangat present at the Guru Kar today. With that, I'd like to invite both Amandeep Singh and Jaspreet Singh to please come on the stage and take their chairs. And with that also, Amandeep Singh, if you could convey your thoughts. Thank you.
वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. So I'll try to actually go both in English and Punjabi so everybody can be a participant here. So the topic of this talk today is unfolding Sikh experience in future. So what are the challenges that we think and we perceive which are going to come to us, not just as Sikhs but even as part of greater humanity? How are we going to face those challenges? How are we going to address those questions? So these are some things that might be uh, it's of really of good scholarly interest these days. So we are trying to engage with that question when in the domain of world philosophy. So the first thing is why future? So why do we talk about future? Why do we think about future? So it's always because future is some has some kind of uncertainty in it. So it is always interesting to know what is the uncertain part of future. So we try to engage with that uncertainty. And then it's vital to plan and prepare for the upcoming challenges. Unless we know what are going to be the different possibilities in this coming era, we will not be able to focus and find out what can we do in these coming times. And understanding the universal and the particular value systems is also the third part which we try to focus on future. So what would be we as particular Sikhs and what would be the universal values as a human mankind? So how do we fit in together? So universal systems versus as well as the particular systems that we develop as different communities or social groups, or I don't want to use this word for Sikhs particularly, but it's something that for a lack of a better term I'm using the word community here. So uh, the first thing is that unfolding of future. How do we think the future will unfold in the coming time? So at a gross, at a world level, on a bigger scale, what we see that nowadays a system is being developed in which men are being made habitual of doing certain things, and which are not by an unknown authority. It's not something that unknown that is governing us, like we used to have a priestly class or somebody unknown, some uh, uh, some supernatural figure which is going to control us, but it's by our participation into the very system on day-to-day basis, which is going to be more overshadowing the imagination and aspirations and the ways in which we act in the world. So that overshadowing of our mental capabilities and our thought processes is going to happen with not with somebody who is outside our domain, but it is going to be what we will be actually participating in it, and we will be actually contributing towards that kind of changes that which will be happening with us. So the first thing is there is going to be a technological revolution that we are already experiencing it in a lot of forms, but it is going to accelerate many-fold coming forward. It is going to take a big leap in coming time. With the advent of AI, which is artificial intelligence, we will have that change in the social scenario, which will be dominating our religious circles. It will be dominating our economic production. It will be dominating every walk of our life. So it is not that AI is only going to be a technological invention. It is also going to dominate in our homes, in our real lives actions, and how we work with our kids and how we develop our families. It is going to be impacting at a much more deeper and a vaster level. So there are biomedical innovations like we are seeing these days, which are also happening. For example, it has already started in terms of sports, and to make people more competitive, have a more better edge over the other competitors. but these innovations are going to be more deeper as we go forward. And then there are genetic engineerings which are going to happen as well. So these are the, and like we latestly we also know about 3D printing and everything like those. So those are the new tools in which the scientific and technological revolution is taking place and is going to unfold in future in a much larger scale. As we see, like robotics is going to displace the human labor. So the human labor part will be displaced by robotics, and biomedicals are going to make more competitive and more productive as we go forward. So with this technological change, there is also going to be a political change. So perceptions will be more engineered in the coming time, and ideological collisions and collapses is going to happen. So basically, we will have a society where politics will be more of just power struggle. So how more power can be enhanced, and how we can have a better consolidation of the society to come under one rule. So basically, this will create more tensions in the society, and these political changes will have a bigger impact on our psyche as well. So, and then there is going to be political gossips. You see that TV debates, false projections, and counter projections are these are already started happening. We can see that in the media all the time. Even the media news are questionable. We are not particularly sure about what exactly to follow. So this is going to be a massive revolution in that state. We already see that how politics is using data and all those kind of like Facebook data and other things to tweak the mind of people, to change the perceptions according to who's winning and who's losing. So it's becoming more of an data-centric politics. It's like no more a human-centric politics. So the populist politics and governance is directed towards election campaign. So governments will be more on election campaign mode most of the times. So these will be probably the political changes. So then there are going to be economic changes as well. So we see the collapse of the trade unions, which has happened very recently. So we don't see any more unions which are able to assert their political pressure. So this is going to be more of a collapse of that part. And rise of financial capitalism, like stock markets, cryptocurrency, and data after death. So especially when we die, we leave the data behind us. So there are simulations which are being projected, like you can talk to your ancestors. Once we die, well, how would we have handled a particular situation in future? That can be traced back with the genetic engineering going on these days. So you can after some time, when they have the voices which are recorded, you can probably even live after your death. So people have already started using keeping their Facebook profiles alive and other things alive for memory. So this is going to have a real economic impact as well. So new system is coming up very, very fast these days. So and we think that this might happen at a very late stage or something like that. But according to what we see, the way the things are going, we will see a dramatic shift in human perception going from after 2030s. This is probably the last or the second last generation that we are living in. And after this generation, we will be having more and more of a generation which will be mostly concentrating their values and their ethnic and their ethical formulations are going to be data driven. So more of them it is more going to be a challenge, bigger challenges coming up for humanity or mankind altogether, which will be changing things very, very fast. So and a few years from now, a generation or two generations from now, we will be looked as people of some kind of dark age. So we will be looked as people who did not have those capacities and capabilities to think. So these are the people of the ancient times. So that is how the ways they are developing is going to actually change the things for us. So which will bring about a huge economic change as well. So economic productivity is central, to production of human values. So we will be our values, our ethical values will be more driven by economic productivity. How productive you are in the society, that is all going to matter as you as a human. So increasing and there will be increasing economic disparity with the dissolution of middle class. So there will be too much money on the top, and there will be too less, and the middle class is shrinking in its patterns going forward. So there is going to be so the lens of human values is given by everyone without taking anybody's consent. So we are not consenting to it, but it is anyways taken from you. The human values will not be the values that you will pass to your next generation. It will be more driven by the data and the artificial intelligence that is coming over. So there is going to be a social change as well, which will be coming up, and the social change will be more individual-centric. Society is going to be created. So we already see more and more. We don't rely on social upbringings. We don't need anybody's help, and we are self-sufficient in terms of our economies. So we have stable jobs, and we don't need anybody's any social binding nowadays. We can raise ourselves. We are self-sufficient in all terms, whether it's economic sufficiency, whether it's a social sufficiency, or our educational sufficiency. We are sufficient as individuals. So the society which is going to form is also going to be individual-centric society, not a community society, or societies which will be more connecting towards each other. So individual will become another number in the society. So as a man, you are more given value. At the same time, your value is being diminished to that of a numerical figure. So we will be just one more spool in the wheel, and whether you are there, if you are there, you are supporting that wheel. Otherwise, if you are not there, somebody else is going to support that same wheel. So family is going to change as well. The family would be an obstruction to an human freedom and self-flourishing. So that is how quickly we are moving towards that. It may sound very absurd at this time, but it is quickly moving in that direction. So we can see that there will be less and less of respect for elders, and for for the knowledge that we seek. There is going to be very less respect for any teacher, there is not going to be any commitments with attached, and there will be no kind of guilt factor which will be associated with that. So if there is a family, nowadays also we see that whenever there is a divorce or anything, there is no guilt factor which is anymore left behind. So it is becoming more distanced relationship in terms of our own inner voice or inner consciousness. So this is how the psychological patterns will also be changing with this changing age. So we will have a control over human senses. We already see that our sense of vision is controlled, our sense of hearing is controlled. Now it's the sense of touch which is also being controlled with the new, we were just talking about the new ways in which technology is entering into our world. We will see that the sense of touch is also getting more and more controlled by AI. So we see that the real estate which is being crafted on the virtual mode, we are trying to go towards that real estate. So similarly, what simulations are going to be there? So by simulating a person, you can actually have that sense also going from you. So virtual life will be more meaningful than your real life. It is already evident in lots of kids these days, and it is going to get really exponentially increasing in the coming generations. So virtual life is going to be more connected than what we are. We sit here, we talk together, we have one-to-one conversations that will be becoming more and more virtual in it. So freedom as a mode of self-expression will be going away. So we are only how much I am free in expressing myself. So that is going to be another thing. And personal hygiene and sense of touch would be a factor that we will be considering more in future. So especially after the last 2-3 years, we have been conditioned to give more stress on personal hygiene and having less of a physical or contact or touch with each other. So free man is made a vehicle of capitalism. So more you are free, you are a better productive and more vehicle of capitalism and materialism. It's like an inner way of subjugating man to participate and contributes in the very process of enslavement. So basically, we are going to be more controlled, and we are moving forward in that. So we have to use our intellect, and it is not the intellect, but when we say that okay, use your intellect to do things. So it is not just the intellect, it's the intention behind using the intellect, which is also questionable. So are we using the what intention is there while we cultivate our intellect? That is going to be a bigger problem. So what are the religious challenges that we are going to probably face in coming time? So the first thing is probably there will be a dehumanization of human piety. Religion will be considered as a psychological phenomenon, and it will be kind of, people will think it's a state of immaturity, and capital is more productive and mature and real. And so we have to be more realistic than being emotional, or that is how we are taking towards taking this world towards. And compassion will be is equal to donation. So whatever we donate is our compassion. So basically that's how we will connect with ourselves and with the pain around us. So older generations will become obsolete, and people of dark age. So that is how we are moving towards. And there is a collapse of the traditional religious and many times the personal values of the society as such. So virtual connections are a new idea of a family. So when we are connecting more, we don't need a family, we will be connected more virtually. And if we think that mental health issues and bipolar disorders and self-alienation are the problems now, we got to wait. It's going to be very, very serious in the changing times. It's going to be increasing many folds going forward. So the paranoia of personal hygiene is also going to be causing a lot of barriers in personal contacts and making people come in terms with each other. So besides this, what are the philosophical crises? So basically, this is not just a technological thing that is coming. It is a social change. It's a political change. It's an economic change. It's an psychological change, it's a change in the value system of the society. It's the change which is coming up in all dimensions, all spheres of our life, on our cultural living and our historical living. So what is the basic philosophical crisis which is happening here? The philosophical crisis is that there is a systematic displacement of metaphysics by plastic materiality and historical urgency. So there is an historical urgency. We know that, oh, this is very important, or this every moment is very important. So we will have a displacement of metaphysics in this. So I want to recall the Zafaranami of Guru Gobind Singh in this context. When the Guru is actually attacked at that point, they have an oath which has been taken on in writing, and the oath says that we will not attack you if you leave this place. So the oath is broken by the people who are actually in their belief system. The Guru Sahib is actually trying to reinsert that spirit of Zafaranami in this. He's saying the metaphysics, there is something higher than just resolving your immediate crisis. And unless you resolve that, unless you connect with that higher thing than resolving just your immediate thing, you will be actually betraying your own religious spirit. You will be betraying your metaphysics. You will be betraying anything which is above and beyond your own capacity. So you cannot betray your belief system in that. So that's why Guru, when he writes the Zafarnama, he is actually questioning that that inner spirit of mankind, asking him to revert back and think about what are they doing in this. And so metaphysics is as important as our real life. We cannot ignore that. So I'm not saying that one should dominate over the other. I'm just saying that it has to be as important as our real life. So metaphysics is thinking which is beyond physics. Meta means beyond physics, right? So anything which is beyond what we have physically in our control, the matter we see, what is beyond that? What is the abstract idea behind it? So that is where we need to actually connect along with the physical systems. So there is a weakening sense of history which is coming up, and history as a recollection of cultural memory and tradition and representing the past. So we will be having a weakening sense of history. So if we lose our historical sense, that will be probably going to be a very challenging thing too. And then there is an undying materiality, infinite rebirth of matter which is happening these days. So every year we have a new telephone, we have every year new car, so basically the matter is reproducing itself every moment. So whatever is new today is becoming obsolete the very next moment. So basically reinvention of matter is so fast, so quick. Man's imagination is always looking towards that reinvention. So basically the undying materiality is there is no death of material in here. Man will die, but not the material. Material will continue even innovating itself. So that is what is the philosophical problem is, because death is very central to any religious conception. So even when Guru Sahib is giving Amrit, he is inviting Sikhs for experience of the death. He's giving a call who is here to sacrifice his material living. So material living has to be surpassed with the experience of death. But since matter has no death in it and absorbed in it, or we do not see anything as a final culmination of where is matter going to take us, when we don't relate with that thing, we are always in state of undying relationship with that matter. So material beauty displaces the sense of aesthetics. We don't have we will not be able to relate with good music anymore, or good poetry. Whatever is creative is going to take a back step. It is because the material beauty of things, like for example, a photograph has displaced all the works of art in painting. So people are more focused on photographs, pictures, and rather than paintings. So this is how art is getting a back step, and people are getting less and less artistic in their imaginations. So there is a blurring boundaries between reality and virtuality. That is the another philosophical crisis, and the idea of technology, not God. So up till this generation, up to this would probably the last generation of that idea, which has uh, God as an idea which is bigger than man. So bigger than us, we think that there is God out there, but probably after this generation that God will be displaced by AI and technology. So whatever is bigger than us would be that idea of technology. So and then this is what is the real crisis in terms of philosophy. When that happens, these are all the earlier ones, that whatever I gave you are the natural outcomes of this. So what are the challenges for Sikhs in future? So Sikhs will have a bigger challenge of their value systems. So collectively we are driving our values from secular modes, and individually we want to drive our values from religious modes. So we have basically two divisions: a secular praxis, and then we have religious individuals. So how do we connect those? This is our challenge. So we are driving our values from all the secular world in which we live, and at religious level we are just individuals. We cannot make our greater sense greater than us. Then the sense of aesthetics or sense of art, imagery and poetry and music, this is also a bigger challenge. How do we preserve this? How do we cultivate and not just preserve it? How do we reinvent it according to our coming challenges, current situations? So that is going to be a bigger challenge too. And then there are ideological formulations and worldview. How do we formulate our ideology? How do we make our worldview? How do we interact with the world? Sikhs will have to decide about it, and till date Sikhs have not taken any firm steps or any intellectual steps in this direction. We want best of the best in terms of matter. We will want the best, the latest telephone, the latest car, but and that's the which is the best in the world. But intellectually, when we go into the intellectual or the scholarly tradition, we have zero participation. No Sikh book is being taught in universities or and no Sikh book is being discussed in scholarly discussions. So that is because we don't have, we want physically everything. We don't want anything which is mentally superior to us. So we don't want to participate in it. So that is going to be a real challenge for coming. So how do we form our worldview if we don't have that part in us? So we need to cultivate that sense too. So Sikh view on history and historiography, especially the Sakhi tradition, this is also going to be difficult for us to carry forward. How do we treat the Sakhis of the Gurus? Do we think that the Guru Sakhi is just a kind of history, and we should actually look at it like from a data collection or a historical collection of facts? Or do we relate emotionally and organically with the Sakhi tradition? So how we relate organically with that, and that is how does the Sikh memory relates with Guru? So that is what is our next challenge. And how do we make our Shabd philosophy or the religious philosophy? So how do we develop that? So these are the challenges that Sikh praxis is not preparing itself in any dimension in this current state. So this is going to be a bigger challenge for us. So opportunities, what are these are the challenges that we have, but what are the opportunities that we can probably use for our making our world in a direction that we would want to see it to be? So we have to reinvent the collectives, which is the panthak. So we have two kinds of ranis. If we look into the Rahat Maryada, we have two kind of livings. One is the panthak or the collective, and then one is the individual living. So, and which is the shaksi rani. So basically the collective as a panthak, we have to come out of that. The panthak rani or the collective rani has been put into a deep freeze by Sikhs themselves. So we have to bring that panthak rani. We are doing this this seminar here. We could do it virtually too, and not have any organic connection with anybody. But why we do seminars in gurdwaras, why we invite sangat, why we do these kind of activities in which we are actually physically participating, is because of that that we are growing as a panth, as a sangat together. So that is a sangati or a panthak responsibility to reinvent the collective. I'm not against that. We cannot do any seminars online or virtually. We will probably have to do that too, because if we want to invite somebody from India or somebody who wants to give a talk from some distance place. But we should also at the same time rethink and try to work as much as possible in organic connections in which we can talk face to face and have more collectives which are developing. So for with that we can actually develop non-political and non-ideological sangat. That is very simple opportunity that we have here. We can probably develop that one too, and that can be done through seminars, through conferences, book readings, and as form of sangat. This should be considered as doing sangat itself. So in which we have more intellectual participation at the same time. We develop Sikh aesthetics, organic and creative interests in poetry and painting and fine arts, and which will go beyond AI. So we should start doing more of poetic works and aesthetical works, especially in domains of domains which can help to extend our boundaries beyond Sikhs. So art works can be done. We can teach children doing painting workshops could be done very easily. So these are the things that can help. And then collective Simran and Seva in the traditional mode is also, I'm not sure if we are observing that closely, but more and more gurdwaras around the world are now relying less of participation from the Sangat and more reliance on the paid langar sevadars. So basically, earlier it used to be not just in America, even in India, you can see that trend which is changing. So people are more confined to their virtual worlds in their home through television, through iPads and all those. They are less interested in doing physical seva and doing collective simran these days. So reinventing, so this would be this is an opportunity that we can probably work, which is to reinvent the collective, and then we can also reinvent the Maryada or the individual or the Shaksi Rani, which is the Rahat Maryada. We have to reinvent that according to the time and age of our times. So we have to start thinking about taking the ownership or responsibilities of our action. Freedom is a very dubious and very intricate term in itself. So most of the time we give a slogan of being free or having freedom. Freedom itself means that we are getting and we are shedding out all the responsibilities at the same time. That is not freedom itself. So that's like a kind of anarchy that we think that we are propagating in the name of freedom. So we got to think that it is more than just physical freedom. It is more like taking the responsibility of our action, and that which we will have to develop this figure. So we have to reduce the gaps between the Gyan and ethics. So unless we do this, individual Rani or individual will not be like, what is our rahat, where is our ikhlaq, so and our gyan, and how we connect our ilm with our ikhlaq. Ilm is separate and ikhlaq cannot develop without ilm. So how do we develop our knowledge with the proper ethics, or with our rahat? So we have to evolve our imagination and our abstract thinking to connect with real thinking. So what our abstract thinking cannot stay away from our real thinking. So we need to somehow, with the more materialization, with more AI, with more those things that are developing, the imagination of the current youth, current society, current ways is becoming really weak. So we cannot imagine beyond what we are here and now. We can only imagine in terms of our capital growth, or our and beyond a certain point the capital growth is virtual. Beyond a certain point it's not even real. It's just a number which is increasing or decreasing in your state. So it's more we are connecting with that more and more, but how is our imagination going to connect with the nature, with the trees, with the birds, with everything that we see around us, or with the Guru's Shabad? That is what we are supposed to develop through the abstract thinking, with the more of intellectual investment in works of arts, including poetry. So Naam Simran practices as individuals also has to be evolving. How many times we have to question ourselves, how many times we sit just by ourselves in our room, just talking to ourselves, and there is no curtain, or no wall between us, within us and within my mind and my consciousness. Are they getting connected? So we have to take this Naam Simran to a next level too. So which is probably that Simran is getting diminished these with the evolving so many works to do, but not one for our own selves. That is the opportunity that we can probably explore. The thing for individual opportunity, another thing is to read. Reading is very important to grow mentally, intellectually, and in imagination, which will help us grow from where we are today. So it's an everyday step that that helps us in our growth on daily basis. So humanizing religion. That is an I think I have just one more slide after this. So we have to humanize religion. So how do we humanize our religion? So there is a significant cultural change that we need to do. We cannot just sit with what cultures that we are having right now. We have to bring about a significant cultural change in that. So the second thing is scholarly discourses with the language learning has to come up. So are we learning new languages? How do we relate with the Persian or Arabic or Greek or other languages or French? Because most of the philosophy is developed by German and French people. So are we developing that relationship? So how are we intellectually internalizing those things? So man is born not in tradition only. Man is not only born in culture. Man is not only born in his ethnicity. So we are not just born in those race or religion, or we are also born in our language. So how do we transcend the language? So how do we relate with that language? So language rebirth is important. So the development of art is there. So art helps in imagination and mitigation of the savage desires and contemplation over impulses. So otherwise we are very impulsive these days. So it is just because our art has not developed in us. So I have seen kids these days, especially the next generation kids, on a very small topic they will fight as if we did not have any connection with anybody. So we will leave the relationship at just for a small instance can actually break up for the whole life. So that is something that we need to rethink, that people are going to do mistakes. People are going to do. Everybody deserves a second chance or opportunities. So why not, if we can do mistakes and anybody else can do the same mistakes too? So we got to mature our kids as well. We cannot be just following them with their desires and whims all the time and have them lead us. It has to go the other way too, when we try to contemplate on that. So discourses are needed between the orthodox and the liberal outlook. The orthodox tradition, mostly what it does is, the orthodox tradition, it usually scares people of religion, and they make rituals on everyday basis. So while the liberal tradition is absurdizing the religion to an extent that, oh, we don't need this, we don't need that, and they are always in the mode of questioning everything. So when we start to question each and every aspect of religion, what we are left with is a bunch of absurdity, which is left beyond in the end. So basically, there is a very subtle kind of weaving that needs to be done between orthodoxy generally vulgarizes religion, and the liberal tradition always tries to absurdize religion. So there is more intertwining and more intricate kind of weaving that is required at this. So without believing in God, we cannot teach others the fear of God. So we have to first believe ourselves. So for that we have to connect our individual ethics with the religious wisdom. So ਸਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ اخلاق ਕੀ ਹੈ? So how do we develop our own ethical positioning is important for us. And then individual living as representation of religious spirit. So what I live individually, what I live myself, it should be representing the religious spirit. No excuse for the knowledge or ignorance is going to go forward in our next generation. We cannot go and tell them, oh, we were not aware of that, we were not aware of this. So basically this is not going to work. It is like a fraud to us and fraud to our own selves, and it's like a fraud to our next generation too. So they will question. So basically we have to cultivate and nourish our imagination with the right knowledge in this. And we have to connecting metaphysics with existentialism. This is our metaphysics has to connect with whatever we are existing here. This connection is missing to overcome the urgencies of existence. So we can take lots of insights from the Sakhi traditions. For example, why did the Guru go and at it's really interesting to note that when the fight is going on and everybody is attacking you, it's the most urgent time and for anybody's consciousness to actually do things with the right mode. But what is the Guru doing? Guru is actually bringing that taus and he is singing Asa Diwar at Sarsa river. So he is not, he is still connecting with when there is soldiers fighting around, you are being attacked from all sides, but the Guru is beyond that existential urgency. So he is still connecting with that higher spirit of his own. So that is there is a bigger message in every Sakhi that we need to reinvent and refigure out how to connect with that essence of our living. So this is a quote from Gurbani. It says, "Tere bachan anup apar santan adar bani vichariye jiyo." So Bani vichariye, santan da adar hi Bani da vichar karna hai. So with that, I hope I tried to sum it up as quickly as I could. I'm running a little late. Sorry about if I've taken any extra time. but we need to focus on this. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.
Amandeep's lecture, multi-tenuted lecture, threw light on the way that artificial intelligence has impacted self and community. In other words, how has the self and how has the community been impacted economically, socially, politically, philosophically, and how there's been a systematic displacement of metaphysics by materiality and historical urgency. I found myself, and I imagine that perhaps several of you were also, facing these questions in the mind. Questions such as, how does each one of us relate to artificial intelligence and perceive artificial intelligence as having done any impact on us? Is the AI repertoire, is the AI so-called promise an unavoidable one-way street that we have no choice but we will set ourselves on? Or maybe, can we have conscious guardrails around us so that the kernel of real self, the Jot Swaroop in us, is guarded and it continues to be lit in the pristine way? Do we believe that our social fabric, meaning relationships with ourselves and relationships with each other, that they will get impacted because of AI? Or perhaps are they already subtly in certain ways getting impacted? Has technology started influencing and impacting some other worlds, some deeper worlds in our imagination that we are not consciously aware of? And how will the Sikh memory relate with Guru in the coming times? What will be our relationship with the Sakhi name? Will we be content with hearing Guru Sakhis in audiovisual forms? Or will we perhaps read the chamatkars which illustrious Sikh theologists such as Bhai Veer Singh laid in front of us and actually relate to the Sakhi name through the written word? What will be our relationship with Sakhis? So these are some profound questions that I think we need to answer for ourselves, and we perhaps need to engage as a community to answer these collectively for us. There are opportunities, as Amandeep was pointing, to reinvent the individual Shaksi Rani and the collective Panthik Rani in light of these macro evolutions that are happening around us. In consciously preserving the Sikh aesthetics and our living, while recognizing that there are these macro evolutions happening around us. So an excellent call to us as a community, an excellent call to us as selves to consciously determine the influence of these evolutions and determine and forge our paths forward. With that, I'd like to appreciate and thank Amandeep for his words and his insights, and would like to now take the opportunity to invite upon Jaspreet Singh to take the second session of our talk.
Thank you, Harjot ji. Vaheguru ji ka khalsa, Vaheguru ji ki fateh. So when Amandeep ji asked me to speak, it was a very big topic, so I tried to kind of put some bounds on it. And, I think I have a few things to share that, in terms of as the kids think about careers and the way I, came up with this. Is it okay to stand here? I don't think I need a mic, right? So, the way I talked about this was transitioning from college to workforce as our kids kind of, make their foray into work life. So, first of all, to go after Amandeep ji is very hard because he's so well read and he's so such a philosopher in terms of his knowledge. So mine is very, very simple. I'm gonna try to get it to a little bit more the things that I have learned or I have come to reflect on in terms of what works or what are the things that I one of the slides I put down, what are the things we need to be focusing on as well as far as society and then youth. The fact of the matter is, and I'm gonna take you here, so the just indulge with me. I'll open it up to some Q&A as well, and there are no bounds in terms of what we can discuss. But this is very interesting. A college degree is not a sign that one is a finished product, but an indication that a person is prepared for life. So I knew very little in college. 4 years passed by, but very quickly. So for me, it was literally getting some grades and not knowing why am I in college actually in the first place, because I guess parents incentivized or told or pushed or beat us into it. Growing up in India, I think most of us had similar things. Either you become an engineer or a doctor or become nobody. I guess that's and those nobodies have actually done well in life. And by the way, career is or financial success is no yardstick of any true happiness, or as we've learned from Gurbani, that's not the pursuit, right? So the pursuit is to impress the Lord, but we keep trying to impress people here, right? That's kind of my challenge, right? I want to impress everybody in the world, but the pursuit should be to impress the Lord, because that's where apa jana hote, right? So, but I think it's fundamentally the important part is, I guess, Sikh learner for life, right? If we can inculcate the aspect that a Sikh or being a Sikh means a learner for life is the biggest thing. When people say about prepared for life, the only thing I tell people or in my group is, are you willing to be a learner? I'll say this. My son actually told me about it. You learn so much from kids. He was like, I don't know, he must have been in part of some research study, and I can't even quote the resource. He said to me, our brain is the average of 10 people we spend most time with. So, I mean, who am Gurbani is all truth, right? Sade Gurua ne udo likhya si jado they were in the purest of the, their connection with Lord, ya Paramatma nal, te baani ch ta kuch hai nahi jhoot, right? Te ਇਹ research ਵੀ ਤਾਂ ਇਹੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸੰਗਤ. So I tell people all the time, if I hang out with somebody who's willing to learn, my progress is going to be much more meaningful. That's it, right? So I tell my staff all the time, Punjabi ch kei wari, oye sikhde raya karo chup karke je, if the word I use or the way I define is, do I have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? That's a very defining word in life. Now, nobody can say, or maybe there are people, some amongst you, who can say, I'm in a growth mindset all the time. The fact is, human beings, we like status quo. We're resistant to change. Who wants to change? When Amandeep ji was talking, I was worried, man, he said older generation, dark ages, right? I'm like 52, and what does my future hold? But the fact is that, thank God, I have Sangat like you to hang out with. But the fact is that change is the only constant in life. there is, and that means the ability to Sikhify and learn, and being a true Sikh is so vital, and that's where to choose those 10 people is the challenge, right? If I'm choosing those 10 people to be the executives I hang out with, I'm only thinking drive, right? How to be more driven. If I'm hanging out with Jaspreet and here, then I'm thinking, okay, how do I get attached to Gurbani more, right? So, but it's that balancing act. So I don't want to go totally one way, but growth mindset is so vital, and to challenge yourself every day to be growth minded is hard, because our natural resting place, it is called comfort zone. You know, I don't know if there's a pen here I could draw here. You know, human beings love that circle of comfort zone. And the thing is, the learning zone is outside the circle of comfort zone. We just are, that's our brain's favorite resting place, is our comfort zone. Leave me alone and I'm comfortable. The learning only happens outside the comfort zone. And then the outside of learning zone is a fear zone. When Amandeep ji was speaking, I was going from learning zone to fear zone, because you know, fear zone is what when he talks about us being in dark ages, right? Our kids are going to reject us to be, hey, you're so ancient, go away. But I think the key is to push yourself from comfort zone to learning zone, and not go into fear zone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this is what I'm seeing. By no means I'm an authority, but this is what I'm seeing today that's playing out in corporate America. That's what is doing the biggest, you know, holding our CEO's time most. So it's been a reset of the world in every which way. The world has been reset whether we like it or not. Pandemic has forced a reset of the world at a level that we couldn't have imagined. Our brains are rewired. Believe it or not, our brains have been rewired, right? That's a truth. Deglobalization. For the better part of 1980s, it started in 1980s, 1990, 2010, even all the way up to 2015. For 35 years, all corporate America did was globalize, globalize, globalize. That's it. Factors of production, world economy, right? We all learned in the business school. That's where the world was. Now, in the last 3 years, more so, it was starting to become even apparent, even when Trump came into power, when he put tariffs in, that are our supply chains going to work? Guess what? None of the supply chains work. Walmart, that's number one in the world in terms of their logistics, can't figure out their supply chain well right now. What am I going to do? I'm headed to Vietnam in 3 weeks to be looking at solar panels, because I need them. And I sent my CEO an email saying, okay, can you approve my travel, Vietnam and Cambodia? He said, is Cambodia safe? I said, it doesn't matter, Jerry. I can't give you solar panels. I can't. And the thing is, yes, this Inflation Reduction Act passed by Biden will do something, but it takes time. But deglobalization, very, very challenged supply chain. And inflation, that's a $1 billion question right now, whether inflation is totally entrenched. But I think the jury is somewhat spoken, it's entrenched, because you can't get labor. So there's one thing, you can't get raw materials, you can't get labor either. You can go to, I called Basha Diagnostics yesterday for X-ray for my mom. I mean, you know, her insurance is not the best, and I said, I'll just pay cash. They said technician comes 2 days a week. I mean, this is like 30 months after the pandemic, right? So inflation, that means I'm willing to pay whatever I need to pay, because that's what it's going to take. More automation. Can't find labor. you know what you're gonna do. Automate, automate, automate. I mean, that's actually, right now we know the pendulum has swung. Revenue is profit. Profit is revenue minus cost. Yeah, you have revenue, you have ability to raise prices, no question about it. But your cost side, everybody's asking for more. So how are companies gonna stay profitable? Companies exist. I mean, and I'm going to come to it, 360 view for everybody. Companies used to exist for only 20 years ago. You went to business school, they only taught about companies exist for the sole purpose of maximizing shareholder value. Well, guess what? It changed in the last 20 years. Companies worry about communities, or good companies too. Companies worry about customers. Companies worry about employees. I'm covering the 360 view, right? So when you're thinking about a CEO, I can't be standing here. Of course, I want DTE to be profitable, but you're all my customers. You're all my communities. What am I doing in the community? What I'm doing for my customers? Who wants to be out of power? Sorry for those who lost power in the last storm, but it was tough. It's tough. Every hour is hour you can't afford to be without power, especially when people are working at home, right? That's a fact. Struggle for talent, I mentioned. I've been carrying this project without any success for my CEO. Future of where we work. I can't figure it out. Nobody can figure it out. Nobody's happy. Working from home, people are a little bit disconnected, isolated. Happy. When you ask them, well, I'm not happy, but I don't want to go back to work full time. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But, well, okay. Well, my boss called me to work once a week. Well, he wants to have some brainstorming. Actually, the mental health, it's good for your mental health. I'm still not happy. My wife works at Ford, and the other day somebody said to her, this is somebody of Indian origin, raised here. She said, I don't know how to drive properly anymore from Waterford to Dearborn. I mean, again, I think later on she came. But it's like when we were raised, it was given that we'll do everything in our power just to make it work, to get a job, get our foot in the door, right? So it's a different world, and nobody's figured it out. Every week, we put our heads together. Okay, what makes sense? I know Google and Apple and a few others have started to say 2 days in the office and figure it out. But it's going to be, the fact is, there is no playbook. There is no playbook. It's like parenting, right? I made a lot of mistakes, unfortunately. On this one, we're going to have to go along. What does the future of work entail in terms of how much? We know virtual is here to stay. I don't think hybrid mechanisms are here to stay. We just don't know how much is the question. Well, the importance of culture, purpose for corporations, and our CEO uses this word, nobody has any grace for anybody. Like, I can't let you down because I won't get grace from you. I'm not putting you guys on the spot, but it's just a simple thing. Nobody's got that margin of error or something, or that grace doesn't exist anymore. It's like, we were told, and we are learning in every storm, unfortunately, with the climate change potentially on us. I mean, you can believe in whatever, but we believe in science, and we believe climate change is real. So weather patterns are going to be more and more unpredictable for us. And unfortunately, trees and wires don't mix, right? We know that. Trees and wires don't mix, and unless I put everything, all my overhead in underground, and it's not even physically possible to do, forget about all the financial ramifications of that. So culture, I guess that's kind of very vital. What is the culture going to look like? If the jobs are transactional work, the culture was the main thing. And culture was all built on physical presence, or a big part of it. So now, are we going into a gig economy? Right? I mean, are we going into an economy that's so it's a lot. Well, as a supply chain, we spend $2 billion in Michigan. That's our big deal. We want to put our money right in our communities. But if I'm going to keep losing talent, what is stopping me from hiring people in India to do buying? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then if people are not going to be willing to come to office at all, or are going to be unhappy, what does it mean? So it's a lot, right, to think about what that longer term good place looks like, and nobody's got it figured out. But then, okay, well, how do I build culture in hybrid world? Our culture was based on volunteering in our communities. Well, if you're not getting together that much, downtown Detroit restaurants, which you could easily get a lunch reservation for a team meeting or whatever, half of them don't open till 3 p.m. Right? I mean, so you can't even find a place to take your team to easily. But the culture aspect is so critical. I mentioned the 360, more isolation. Amandeep ji mentioned, right? So that's the other part. What does people feel isolated? I've had issues where you can't find workforce on lower economic scale. You can't get any workforce on janitorial work. And it's becoming hard. People are flipping. So I have a nuclear power plant. I can't put people in who are going to flip on me. The risk is huge. So I can't find workforce, especially in certain pockets, right? It's more and more entrenched. Neuroscience, I guess we were hearing neuroscience before, but I was telling my son, I think you should do a psychiatry degree and be consultant to CEOs. I mean, that's what they're going to need in trying to shape organizations more and more. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. I'll stop here for a second. I said, this team is going to define what the new normal look like, right? So we are shaping the future as we are talking about in this room, as we are thinking through this room. And I think the whole idea behind sharing this is that for our youth to think about careers, and for us to think about where they can play a meaningful or meaty role in this whole aspect. But very good points. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. Certainly, it's the same thing, right? Even our Gurbani says, it talks about this, and in general, one of my favorite books, The Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, he talks about pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, right? So whether it's old age, whether it's other things in life, things are going to happen, life is going to happen, but suffering is optional, and that's kind of the thing. But that's a very good point. So I'm going to actually wrap it up pretty quickly here in terms of, so these are some of the careers in energy. It's the most, I'm not trying to sell energy, it's the most happening place. I'd gone to England with my wife and family. The only thing in England they can talk about is energy bills right now. Only thing Europe can talk about is energy bills. I was in Athens, and two European countries we visited. The energy costs are off, and thank God you don't want to sound selfish. You say we have problems, but trust me, we have 100 years availability of natural gas, And I know natural gas people don't like to hear, but it's a bridge fuel till we solarize or do everything in this world that we need to do. But these are some of the professions that are really, really good professions for our youth. The good thing is, at DTE in the last 10 years in supply chain, we've had 12, 14 of our Desi students come and intern with me. So that's been a good, so supply chain has become a hot area, and it is one of the hotter areas to emerge out of this pandemic too. But these are some of the careers that are going to be very, very meaningful in terms of energy. And these are the I wrote down a few things, right, for kids, before entering the world of work. And I think this is where I want to highlight a few things. Be prepared for unexpected work or change in deadlines. The work has become so emergent these days that what we really go to expect is different than what we are getting. Again, ideal work-life balance. One of the things that I often say, and I think it's in my subsequent slides as well, maybe. So the time management is probably the biggest piece, that I tell, because if you don't do this well, you're gonna run yourself crazy, and I've done that, and you're gonna have no meaningful time for yourself, because we are hardworking people. It's just given to us, and I think to a large extent our kids are gonna be like that, right? They have some of the value systems. So networking is probably one of the most important things. There is a tendency in the youth today to actually, hey, I'll take care of it. I've seen it with my kids. I'll take care of it, what needs to be done, and they are not gonna get involved. So we talk about opportunities for our kids. The issue is, you want to learn something from a senior executive, a director, or VP, you have some easy access in some meetings, after work functions, to get some informal time, but you're not going to commit to that. Where are you going to get those opportunities? See, the thing is that I know in the spirit of DEI we complain. Well, you know how in business school we learned that people like to hire people like themselves. I mean, that's just the human nature, right? Well, guess what? Either I can say, well, all those white Americans are getting those opportunities for networking, and they are getting those lunches with those executives. Well, what are you going to do to break that cycle, right? You can just live in your den and be happy, or be happy complaining about it, or you can do something about it. While we are making concerted effort to make sure that my lunch slots not only go to certain people, but nobody is going to stop a person who's willing to network, finding a mentor or a sponsor, professional networking events. These are like so vital. There are people who are making intentional choices, and that's just, the fact is, if somebody meets me 4 times, tells me about career aspirations, their name is gonna stick with me. versus somebody who's not, again, all things considered equal, you can advertise for a job, you can do all those things, but networking is so vital. I mean, LinkedIn has, I have a full-blown presentation on LinkedIn. I can make it available to you all. I'm not going to go into that today, but how to use LinkedIn. But fact of the matter is, it's still virtual, right? The opportunities that you get with people is, out of sight, out of mind. I was telling somebody, a friend of mine, he's been trying to be a VP and he's a director. I said, look, you're not even making an effort to come to downtown campus, right? So you can make some choices, right? I'm not saying go there to just impress people, but out of sight, out of mind, right? I mean, it's like somebody's got to be visible. I often say this, right? In youth, I pursued a lot of happiness, whatever things I did to be happy. But, now I'm a little bit, at least somewhat, well, it's not showing up yet. Don't pursue happiness. It comes from doing right things, right? We talk about this a lot in our family about happiness and, how to, I go back to Viktor Frankl's definition of happiness. Happiness cannot be pursued. Happiness is ensued. But that's a 50-year definition of happiness from a 50-year-old, not from a 25-year-old. But I think that's where a lot of people pursue happiness, thinking, whatever. So again, the goals are important, and there is this tendency. That first point is very important. Reflecting and deeply thinking about what you want out of your life. There's a correction there. A lot of us are being trained to be vulnerable, to be true to who you are. They want Jazz's true personality at work to come out versus just being, hiding behind my PowerPoint or whatnot. So I think reflecting deeply about things is very important, because that lets your true personality be manifested. Again, setting goals is very important. I mean, I've seen kids do well who have very well-defined goals, and then I have kids do well who one of my best career advice I got was just make sure you do your current job so well, you don't even have to tell somebody that you want the next job. That's it, right? And it was very simple but very elegant. Yeah, spending habits, that's a pretty big deal right now. I think as a father to two kids, I often struggle with this about, how they spend money or their concept of money. So I guess that's the only thing I can say. Focus on what you earn. Not on what you earn, but focus on how you spend what you earn, right? So that helps them, because, it's like, having some kind of a thought process around what you can or what you should do is very, very important. How you do things. So I mean, this is just wrapping it up, right? So, one of the best advice I got, always keep a notebook and pen with you. I steal shamelessly. Personally, I have no originality at all. I'll just say this, in the sense that there are some books that have meaningfully influenced me, The Power of Habit. I tell people all the time, it's actually a book that's recommended by many CEOs. It's not even a business book, it's a life book. Power of Habit, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Thanks for the feedback. The hardest thing is giving and taking meaningful feedback. And one last one is Power of Habit, the Man's Search for Meaning. These 3 or 4, the life books, the business books, right? Because they really, really help you find that intersectionality, or whatever that right word is, in terms of finding, I guess these days you have to be very careful. The hardest thing is right in the middle. During every meeting, be in the now. The hardest thing probably in the world, and after pandemic, it's even harder because our phones are running our lives. Before we know them, they have pretty much, and we are never where we are supposed to be, and I mentioned, do the best work you can in your current role, and it'll open to other opportunities. Be your true authentic self. I mentioned connect with your senior leaders for developmental growth. And of course, be very careful what you post on your social media platforms. You don't know where it'll come back to haunt you. But I think I'll just wrap it up by saying this. Books help you find your true self. For me, I did not have the discipline of knowing myself well by myself. I found through books some reflections and some ideas that had helped me connect with myself better, that help extend your capabilities. And the last thing I'll just say is play to your strengths for kids. I mean, that self-awareness somehow, once you figure it out, learning is very, very important, absolutely. But when you're talking about strengths, that really, really maximizes you in so many ways, because then you are your true authentic self. There is passion, and there is hard work, and people can see through that. The careers are going to be, I guess the sky is the limit in terms of opportunities today that are going to present. The good thing is, in corporate America, there's a lot more focus on hiring women today than ever before. So because only 4-5% of S&P 500 CEOs are women. So you can imagine that how much opportunity, because the people want to equalize not in a way that you can't be unsmart or less capable, but for opportunities that might have been very, very limited in the past, now are very, very open. So thank you. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.
A few overall, the talk and the speech and the content that Jaspreet Singh presented was much enlightening. I'll hone in on a couple that particularly resonated with me. He said culture was built on being together in the pre-pandemic way of life. But now, since we're not really as much together, clearly being together, right, has come to a downward pattern. So definitely, the definition of culture is going to be affected. And we see it is being affected. His observation that evolution is the only constant, or what we say, change is the only constant. This actually gives me the opportunity to make a brief segue and note that any change, any evolution, we know that change is going to happen. We know that evolution is a constant. But what I will like to say is that any change, any evolution behooves to be understood consciously for its nuances, for its elements, for its specifics. And our minds that are anchored in growth mindsets need to make this conscious effort. We as communities aware of these evolutions and specificities should actively construct our chosen responses rather than constructing responses which are driven by past ways or inertial ways of thinking. Because if we continue to let inertia drive our responses to the new changes, it will be a bit of a mindless activity, and we perhaps may not have learned from the history. And it is a famous saying that what we don't learn from the history, we are doomed to repeat that mistake. So as changes happen around us, a growth mindset, a conscious mindset needs to notice them, learn the nuances, and observe the specificities around the change and construct a meaningful response. And I think what I've experienced is that the collective thought process of the speakers on the stage and off the stage have essentially conveyed the overall model in which we perhaps should be thinking about this. And I will say, thanks to Jaspreet for he provided very valuable pointers and advice that's going to help us all not only navigate our professional lives more meaningfully and in an enriched manner, but perhaps our personal lives too. And I have a personal comment on work-life balance. I recently became a part of the Amazon team. And one of the questions that was asked to Jeff Bezos was, well, we think that there has been a concern about work-life balance that may have come from some parts of your organization. And Bezos wonderfully responds and he says, well, I am a personal believer in work-life harmony. It is distinct and different from work-life balance, because work-life balance might connote that you have a strict trade-off regime happening between work and life on two ends, whereas harmony means that when you're working and you're giving your best, you're being energized in that process, and that energy is what you're taking to the home front. And at the home front, you're so meaningfully involved with the relations that that's energizing you, and that energy, you're flowing it back to your work. And that work-life harmony model is something that truly enriches our lives, and that's what Bezos proposes and lives. So I thought that was a very interesting personal insight that I took from being a week-old Amazonian. Jaspreet, you were very kind enough to give us encouragement to read the books so we can extend our mental capabilities. Your son had said that we are the average of 10 people that we have met in terms of our thinking. I might extend that and say we probably are also the average thought process of the last 10 books that we read, right? So I think that's a natural extension to that. But wonderful insights and meaningful dialogue here, extending some of what Amandeep had said on a philosophical level to the existential level is what Jaspreet did for us, for this audience today. We'll take a short break for about 5 minutes, have a quick tea break, and then reconvene with Satpal Goelji's narratives on his creative expression. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
थोड़ा उच्चा करना पैना। वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह। धन्यवाद हरजोत जी। और फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल many thanks Amandeep ji for your beautiful talk. There's a lot to think about always. It takes a while to chew on those things and find some connections. Very thought provoking. Especially Jaspreet Palji's talk. I not only fully 1,000 times agree with and bow my head to that books or reading. Whatever I am after my parents or education, whatever, it's all because of reading. I'm a voracious reader. Kali library de vichon, this is a great country. And you name any book, if they don't have it, they'll get it from somewhere. Maybe on early technology, which you don't even have to call the library, they'll send you in your mailbox. बट घोड़े ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਿਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਕੈਨ ਮੇਕ ਹਿਮ ਡਰਿੰਕ ਵਾਟਰ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਪੈਣਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹਜ਼ਮ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਪੈਣੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ। I forgot even the 3 books I got yesterday because my wife, she likes knitting. ਉਹਦੀ knitting ਦੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੂਈ ਧਾਗਾ ਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਫੁਰਸਤ ਮੈਂ ਰਾਤ ਦੇ 12:30 ਵਜੇ ਦੇਖੀਆਂ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਕੀ ਨੇ। I still don't remember. Technology again came to my rescue. These books are David White, WHYTE. I still know the title. ये मेरा आंसर है जसप्रीत जी कि we have to redefine the words, basic words what we talk about. Many books have been written on that. So I glimpsed through that book. What struck me, he writes about pain. Those are simple words: pain, anger, memory, and there's only one page. I like that part. It's not a discourse. So in pain he says, pain is the first doorstep to bring you to the here and now. Pain is the possibility to compassion. This is an answer to apne Amandeep ji. So unless we go deep into the words and incorporate those in our own consciousness, they become ours. Same way I spoke about resurrection to the white community. I said most of the people who have read Bible, who are Christian, don't understand the word resurrection. My definition is, resurrection is to the extent you have incorporated Christ or his principles to your life. That's the resurrection. Maybe Jaspreet Shabd reset, I would say reboot. Phone कई दफ़ा काम नहीं करता, you have to turn it off and turn it on, everything comes on. So we have to be very inquisitive how technology is bringing things that is a blessing at the same time. Again, much would depend upon our living to what the change is taking place. One final thing I want to say, Oprah Winfrey, she is not a writer, she is a good speaker, a thinker. So I came across a big book in our public library. That was a book, beautiful book in pictures about her life and the people she came across, जिन्ना लोगों ने interview की थी. In the middle of the book, there is a blank page to the right hand side, and there is a little quotation: read, quotation marks, hyphen, William Faulkner. I have spoken on William Faulkner each time. I also refer to here. I can speak for hours. William Faulkner, his main line, जो ने speech ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੋਲੀ when he accepted the Nobel Prize, he said, "Past is never dead. Past is not even past." Beautiful line. So Oprah Winfrey, I learned from Faulkner ਉਹਦੇ 3 ਸ਼ਬਦ that read. So that's I fully agree with the previous 2 speakers and Abhyoti. Harjot ji, sorry, that unless we keep on reading, unless we keep on learning and sharing how much we have done. So that was my reflection on the other talks, and I am very grateful. ਇਹ ਦੋ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ the credit goes to Baldev ji. He introduced me to this Gurdwara. When I came first time, I didn't know him, he didn't know me. We sat on the langar line नीचे अपने फर्श दे उत्ते. He was on my right hand side. So that's from that day. He is the one, whenever I think about Gurdwara or going or something, we share that. So I'm grateful for that too. And this I was finding an important paper to help somebody. From ਮੇਰੇ ਉਹ ਪਲੈਂਦੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ 8-10 ਪੁਰਾਣੀਆਂ ਇਹ ਮਿਲ ਗਈਆਂ। ਦਿਸ 2004 ਦੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ 4-5 ਪੇਜ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਆਪਣੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਕੁਛ ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਆਈ ਵਿਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਦੈਟ ਵਿਦ ਸਮ ਨੀਡ ਸਮ ਚੇਂਜਸ। ਨਾਓ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਹੈ ਅਨੰਤ ਦੀ ਮਹਿਮਾ। ਤੂੰ ਅਨੰਤ ਹੈ ਬੇਅੰਤ, ਤੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਨਿਰੰਕਾਰ, ਤੂੰ ਸੂਰਜ ਦੀ ਲਾਲੀ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਚੰਦ ਦੀ ਚਾਂਦਨੀ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਬੀਜ ਦੀ ਕੁੱਖ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਅੰਕੁਰ ਦੇ ਰੁੱਖ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਪੱਤਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਹਰਿਆਲੀ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਫੁੱਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਫਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਰਸ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਤਿਤਲੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਖੰਭਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਤੋਤਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਰੰਗਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਕੋਇਲ ਦੀ ਕੂਕੂ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਮੋਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਾਲ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਕੂੰਜਾਂ ਦੀ ਡਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਹਿਰਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰਫ਼ਤਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਹੰਸਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਡਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਧਰਤੀ ਦੇ ਭਾਗ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਬੱਦਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੜਗੜਾਹਟ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਬਿਜਲੀ ਦੀ ਲਿਸ਼ਕਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਤਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਆਕਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਸਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਵਿਰਾਟ ਦੇ ਵਿਸਤਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਦੀਵੇ ਦੀ ਜੋਤ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਭਗਤਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਸੰਤੋਖ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਬੁੱਧ ਦੀ ਦਇਆ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੀ ਖੁਮਾਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਦੀ ਉਸਾਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੂੰ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਦਾ ਪਾਲਨਹਾਰ, ਤੂੰ ਸਭਨੀ ਥਾਈਂ ਮੈਂ ਬਲਿਹਾਰੇ ਜਾਵਾਂ, ਤੂੰ ਸਭਨਾ ਸਾਈਂ, ਤੂੰ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਸਾਈਂ, ਤੂੰ ਅਨੰਤ ਹੈ ਬੇਅੰਤ, ਤੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਨਿਰੰਕਾਰ। ਇਹ ਸੀ ਅਨੰਤ ਦੀ ਮਹਿਮਾ। ਮੋਤੀਏ ਦੇ ਫੁੱਲ। ਸਜਿਆ ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ ਦਾ ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰ, ਮੋਤੀਏ ਦੇ ਫੁੱਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਸੁੰਦਰ ਨਾਰ। ਲੈ ਲਓ 5-5 ਰੁਪਈਏ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਹਾਰ, ਅਸਾਂ ਚੁਣਿਆ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਫੁੱਲ, ਬੜੀਆਂ ਸਦਰਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਆਸਾਂ ਨਾਲ। ਲੈ ਲਓ ਬਾਬੂ ਜੀ, ਲੈ ਲਓ ਬੀਬੀ ਜੀ, ਫੁੱਲਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਉਪਹਾਰ। ਮਹਿਕ, ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ, ਸੁੰਦਰਤਾ ਦੇ ਥਾਲ, ਮੰਗਲ, ਅਸੀਸ, ਪਿਆਰ, ਚਾਅ ਅਤੇ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਇਜ਼ਹਾਰ। ਆਪਣੀ ਭੁੱਖ, ਗਰੀਬੀ, ਲਾਲਸਾ ਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਸਵਾਲ। ਸਬਰ ਦੀ ਘੁੱਟ ਸਮੇਟੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਹਾਲ। ਸ਼ਾਮ ਦਾ ਵੇਲਾ, ਬਹੁਤ ਭੀੜ ਭਾੜ, ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਆਵਾਜ਼ਾਂ, ਕਾਫੀ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਸ਼ਰਾਬਾ। ਖਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੀ ਇਹ ਦੌੜ, ਗਣਤ ਦੇ ਦੂਏ ਤੀਏ। ਮੋਤੀਏ ਦੇ ਫੁੱਲ, ਸਜਿਆ ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ ਦਾ ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰ। ਲੱਖ ਲੱਖ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਮੋਤੀ, ਬਸ ਪ੍ਰਭੂ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਜੋਤੀ। ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ 'ਚ ਛੁਪਿਆ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼, ਮਾਇਆ 'ਚ ਲੁਕਿਆ ਬ੍ਰਹਮ। ਰੂਪ ਮਹਿਕ ਹਨ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਦ, ਰੰਗਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਤਸਵ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਬਾਗ। ਮੋਤੀਏ ਦੇ ਫੁੱਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਸੁੰਦਰ ਨਾਰ, ਸਜਿਆ ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ ਦਾ ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਸਤਪਾਲ ਗੋਇਲ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਅਨੰਤ ਦੀ ਮਹਿਮਾ ਬਲੌਸਮਿੰਗ ਸਰਟਨਟੀ ਅਰਥਾਤ ਮੌਲ ਦੀ ਨਿਸ਼ਚਿਤਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਗਸਤੇ ਭਾਵਾਂ 'ਚ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਸਿਰਜਨਾਤਮਕ ਭਾਵ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤੇ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਵਾਹ ਵਾਹ ਦੀ ਧੁਨੀ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਉਤਪੰਨ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਮੋਤੀਏ ਦੇ ਫੁੱਲ, ਇਹ ਨੰਨ੍ਹੇ ਮਹਿਕਦੇ ਫੁੱਲ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਦੀ ਸੂਖਮ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਸੰਵਾਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਵੇਂ ਟਟੋਲਦੀ ਹੈ, ਇਸ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਪੇਸ਼ਕਸ਼ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੁੰਦਰ ਢੰਗ ਨਾਲ ਕੀਤੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮਸ਼ਕੂਰ ਹਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਖਰੀ ਸੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਵੱਲ ਵੱਧਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ 4th ਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਵੱਲ ਵਧ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। So, ਨਾਥ ਪ੍ਰਗਾਸ ਦੀ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਸਾਲ, ਨਾਥ ਪ੍ਰਗਾਸ USA ਦੀ ਫਰਸਟ ਈਅਰ ਜਰਨੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਗਲਾਂਸ ਪਾਵਾਂਗੇ। And what I will say is that, you know, Nath Pragash USA's journey has been the journey of a community. And, you know, this journey has been the journey of the community of a people who value creative expression, meta thinking, and ever expanding ways of perceiving the physical universe and the organic universe in ourselves. Nath Pragash USA's first year journey has been the journey of a community of a people who value dialogue, who value contemplation and mediation, and recognize that these practices are valuable to keep the pulsation of a civilization alive. And that without these, we will fall into the trap of stasis. And then stasis will start leading us to our demise if we're not consciously active, which this community is actually active. And the journey has been the journey of a community of a people such as yourselves who recognize that Surt, Mat, Buddh are intertwined with each other, and the journey that one takes in this world can only be fulfilled if we are endeavoring in all these three areas. Otherwise, our journey does not actualize and fulfill itself. So I congratulate the community on being a part of this collective journey with Nath Pragash USA for 1 year. Let us recall and, you know, hold a proverbial kaleidoscope, a retrospective kaleidoscope through the path and stations that we have been on. Now, we've come quite far. If you see this, in September 2021, the organization was registered as a non-profit org. On December 7, we had the book release of republished version of Spirit of Oriental Poetry, a work by Professor Puran Singh. This happened in December. In January, Persian classes were commenced at the Gurukar. Professor Jagdish Singh administered those classes for a period of 3 months, and those recordings are available for all interested seekers on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. In February, on February 15, 2022, there was a lecture on understanding Zafaranami, and there was a follow-up lecture as well. In March, a book was released on Akal Takht Sahib. We had Jathedar Akal Takht Sahib grace us with his presence. We had that book release at Mata Tripta Gurukar in March. The book's title was Akal Takht, Tradition, History and Conceptual Appraisals. Then we started the momentous journey of Sikh Women Book Club on April 16, 2022. This particular effort was encouraged by several members of the community, continues to be supported by several members of the community. In April, on April 22nd April, we had a discussion on learning Sikhi with Sikh youth. And we'll go into little pictures and little snippets of what we did on all of these, just to kind of go back and rewind our memory lane. On April 30th, 2022, we had a book release of Violence and the Sikhs that was authored by Professor Arvind Pal Mandir from University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And on July 3rd, we commemorated as a community 100 years of Sikh migration to United States. To Michigan. And today we're here as a community again. We have had a seminar, we're having a seminar on future of Sikhs and career prospects, the talks that we had this morning. So you see, as a community of community of people such as yourselves, the organization and the community has covered 1 year. These are some of the reminiscences from the Spirit of Oriental Poetry publication, where there was an emphasis made to theorize the aesthetics of Shabad tradition. This is a masterpiece work from Professor Puran Singh, who's authored several other books in the English and Punjabi language. And the Spirit of Oriental Poetry was republished by Nath Pragas USA with introduction by Amandeep Singh, who basically contextualized the modern existential living and paradigms to come up with a fresh introduction to the book. Every significant book needs to be re-perceived and re-experienced in the light of the particular time that we live in. And republications of such book gives us that opportunity. Persian classes, we all know that this is an event. There are about a dozen classes that were held, which honed in on the Persian alphabet, Persian grammar. We had the opportunity to read Zafaranami and decipher the text from the Sikh lens. And we also had the opportunity to go through some of Bhai Nandlal Goya's works as well. And these were conducted during the period of January through March 2022. These classes, the recording of these classes continues to be available on YouTube channel, so you're all encouraged to maybe refresh yourselves of what we learned, or perhaps initiate yourselves newly. Those resources are right there. Understanding Zafaranami, this is a two-part lecture that was conducted at Rochester Hills Gurukar. And Zafaranami is a significant text which was probably the zenith of creative imagination of the embodiment of Guru that we were blessed with. This was Zafaranami, flew from the pen of Guru Gobind Singh, Sache Patsha, and Amandeep Singh and Professor Jagdish Singh gave their perspectives on this text, and Amandeep Singh had indicated that there are three modes of approaching Zafaranami: literary, historical, and conceptual. And, he perceived and interpreted the act of Aurangzeb breaking the oath on the Holy Quran as to what did that imply. And concepts like these were covered in that lecture. This lecture is also available on YouTube. As always, Professor Jagdish Singh talked about the Nami tradition in that talk, and he also talked about the fact that, the feudalized tribal psyche among the Sikhs that had started to raise its ugly head during the times of when the Zafaranami was physically penned, this was an epistemological and a creative response to that as well. There was, as the next event was the book release on essays on Akal Takht, tradition, history, and conceptual appraisals. We had Gyani Harpreet Singh, Jathedar Akal Takht Sahib, be the chief guest in this event, and of course we had members such as yourselves attending. And this is a significant work which takes the serious writing and serious contemplation on Akal Takht to the next level. There are two previous books that Amandeep Singh had written on Akal Takht, and he continues to build and read and evolve his learning and experience in this domain. Akal Takht is one of the supreme authorities of the Sikh civilization. And so to have seminal works, to have underpinning works in this domain is a necessity. And Nath Prakash USA is continuing to work towards this necessity by researching on this seminal body and come up with future publications as well. Nath Prakash USA Sikh Women Book Club, it is an effort that was commenced on April 16, and what we believe is that the textual way of building and developing human consciousness perhaps has taken relative backseat as distinct from the oral and verbal way of developing human consciousness. If we look at ourselves in our daily lives, we see that we think and we mediate and we formulate ideas based on our conversations more than perhaps the written word or the book and the texts. So the guiding light, the beacon behind Nath Prakash US Sikh Women Book Club was to recognize and register the necessity to take the textual way of building and evolving our human consciousness to the next level. So there was a list of a few hundred books that were basically identified, and they were explored and they were scrutinized to handpick about 30 books that we as a group of women placed in front of ourselves, and we signed up for those particular books that particularly appealed to us and we wanted to read about. And our group meets once every 3 weeks, every third Saturday. The next meeting is on September 24th. We will have 3 presenters talk about the chief imports that they have taken from the 3 books that they signed up for, and they'll give us a high-level summary view of what was there in the book. And the hope and the inspiration behind these is that when we read about what is the chief import of a book or what is the episteme of the book, it encourages us to perhaps pick that book and go on a journey of our own. There is a community journey that we do when we come and participate in efforts like these, but then somewhere these efforts also prick or have the potential to prick our own individual journeys. And so we look forward to having you on September 24th during our 7th meet of the Sikh Women Book Club. Learning Sikhi with Sikh Youth was our next effort, where we organized this camp on April 22, and it was intended to hear the voice of Sikh youth and how has their living in the Western world in the United States shaped their beliefs and experiences about Sikhism. What are some of the challenges they face in their daily lives and their existential living? And those concerns and questions and thoughts of the Sikh youth was presented to the community members in presence and the Gurdwara management in presence, and there was a healthy, active dialogue on what perhaps could be done by the community and what perhaps is rightfully the onus of the youth himself to take on. There was a discussion on violence and the Sikhs. Violence and Sikhs is a book that has been authored by Arvind Pal Mandair, published by Cambridge, and we had, although it's a small book, it has profound ways in which it speaks to a being, where one of the core things that I personally took from there was that we need to make prudent choices as Sikhs when we relate to the narrative of being a martial race. That perhaps being called a martial race has failed us in the past because we were happy eulogizing about the fact that we're being called a martial race, and we perhaps did not look behind the veil as political narratives were being built behind the scenes, which were almost leading us to be a martial race. And in having us think about ourselves as a martial race, really shortchange us of the deeper opportunities and the deeper ways that we could influence the world around us. And then, of course, there was this 100 years of Sikh migration to Michigan. Pardon the typo there. We celebrated 100 years of Sikh migration to Michigan. Here in the Gurdwara Sahib itself, we had poetry recital event. Several of you participated in that event. We had several members of the community recite their poems over the web in the offline way as well as here in person. And we we put into perspective what authentic migration to a land means to us as Sikhs. That what are the traits of an authentic migration, and how can we continue to make our migration to Michigan more authentic in the times to come. This was held on July 3rd. At the end, I would like to briefly apprise you of the fact that we have started the newsletter, Nath Pragas USA newsletter, which we are going to be periodically sending. We're still determining the frequency at which this newsletter will be sent out. We wholeheartedly invite the members of the community, yourselves, to send us poems and creative writings and essays or any mediative work that you may have composed. And we will happily look forward to publishing those in the newsletter, in the future volumes of the newsletter. If you have to subscribe to our newsletter, please send us an email. If you want to share your authored content with us, please send us an email to nathpragasusa@gmail.com. With that, I'd like to congratulate this community for being on this collective journey with us, and in the times to come, I invite upon you to be a part of this journey going forward as well, and charting some territories and traversing some pathways which in and of ourselves we probably could not have explored. Thank you for that. With that, we are now at the final leg of our seminar for today. I'd like to invite upon Penji Raman Kaur to convey her word of thanks.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'd like to, I think, thank several people today. I think it was a beautiful seminar, a beautiful attempt at thinking about where we are and where we're going. Thank you to Sardar Amandeep Singh for talking about the past and the future challenges, but also highlighting opportunities for us to be thinking about as a Sikh community. Thanks to Jaspreet Singh for bringing up challenges and opportunities in the business world, and I found it very fascinating how those two things started to intersect, right? The challenges and opportunities as a Sikh community and in the business world. I think that, it's just really interesting if we think about the future of Sikh spiritual and temporally, how we need to think about coming together and be fully present and also be fully aware of the challenges coming towards us. Because if we think about it, the changes that we have seen in the last 100 years went at a pace far greater than even the 500 years before that. The changes in the last 50 years eclipsed the changes in the 50 years before that. And the changes, as I think Jaspreet Singh mentioned a lot, just the changes in the last 3 years, what we've seen. So I think that we as Sikhs have to be very aware, because the Guru has asked us to be fully present in the Maidan, in the Karam Khetar, like we need to be fully present in life. So I thank Nath Pragas USA for their efforts over this last year, as well as today, in bringing these kind of important thoughts to the forefront, because if we as Sikhs are fully present, we can arrive in full Chardi Kala, and as actually Guru Arjan said and in a response to Sheikh Farid when he was lamenting about why he was on earth, he says, Farida Umar Sohavadi Sang Suvanadi De Vidle Kai Payan Jinna Pyare Ne. So we need to come to with that attitude that we are every day so present and so engaged with our present and our future and our sangat and our community and our inner and outer selves. So thank you again for bringing up all those wonderful thoughts. I always have to thank Gurdwara Sahib Mata Tripta for hosting these. I think that Gurdwara, we're very fortunate to be in a community and a sangat that values learning and teaching and literature and new ways of thinking, and who are open to those things. And in support of Gurdwara Sahib Mata Tripta, I just wanted to remind everybody here in the room and at home that the annual, Sikh Heritage Dinner that had to take a hiatus for 3 years is being held a week from tomorrow on September 25th. So please buy your tickets and please attend. That's another way of engaging our internal community as well as our external community. And again, just so thank you so much again for the Sangat for attending here in person as well as online at home via YouTube. I think it's a great resource that we're able to go back and attend. And all of those book club sessions that Harjot Kaur mentioned, if you haven't been able to attend, they're all available online, and they are really amazing. I highly recommend them, and also the Persian classes. And finally, we have a langar. Please, everyone, stay for langar if you're here in the room. And thank you again for attending, and we look forward to the next seminar. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.